And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell with MSO News Sports, joined by Phil Stacey, Nick Kukuru, and Nick Giannino. Phil and Nick Giannino from the Salem News, Nick Kukuru, the sports editor of the Gloucester Times, and all are listed below on our MSO News Sports post. But gentlemen, we're here to talk some football. I mean, we've got, of the public schools anyways, you got Marblehead, Swampscott, North Reading, 5-0. You got a bunch of teams at 4-1 after this past weekend. Masco, Salem, Hamilton, Wenham, Pentucket. Might be leaving somebody out there. But I think I got some of them anyways. We're not mentioning the privates right there in that little segment. But so I don't know where to begin. I think we should start with this past weekend. Look ahead. We've got some big games coming up this weekend. But Phil, do you want to lead us off with some thoughts?
Sure. I wrote something late last week about the pairings and how, they're being determined now between, your own team strength of schedule and their own points value, which is called MOV, and those are added together to give you a rating that determines where you are in one of the 8 divisions, whether you have one of those coveted 16 playoff spots. And there are some caveats. I mean, in order to make the playoffs, you have to have at least 3 wins. So you couldn't be a 1-7 team that happen to have a really good strength of schedule. You land top 16, you're not going to make the playoffs kind of thing. So these are constantly changing and evolving based on obviously wins and losses, but the schedule you play, that's a big thing. St. John's Prep, they're getting into the meat of their Catholic Conference schedule now. I think they'd probably admit kind of a lackluster win over Malden Catholic last weekend, but they did win behind 4 touchdown catches from Jesse O'Fury, 300 yards passing from Jack Perry. I want to say $147 on the ground from Jake Guy. So they're kind of locked into that number 2 spot in Division 1 behind Franklin. Huge test, obviously, this Friday night with Catholic Memorial coming to town. Now, we've been over this already, I think, but the fact that Catholic Memorial is opting not to play in Division 1 but stay in Division 2 is ridiculous. If you want to claim to be the state's best team, then play in the best division. Don't take the easy way out. Move up. You already play a lot of these teams in the regular season, so instead of going into the playoffs and say, "Oh, we beat Barnstable for the state title. Oh, we beat King Philip," beat a Zavarian, beat a St. John's Prep, beat a Central Catholic. Beat whoever. But anyway, this will be the only meeting between these 2 teams this year, so I know that both teams will be super geared up for that. What do we have? Division 2, I want to say Beverly, after their good win over Danvers last Friday night under those portable lights that were brought into Beverly. And we can kind of circle back to those lights at some point, maybe later in the podcast, Bill. But for right now, I want to say Beverly is ranked number 11 at 3-2, which is, a good spot for them. Peabody is 20th. And although I can see them winning out in the regular season, with 3 NEC South teams coming up, I think the strength of schedule there is going to hurt them, and they may not be able to squeeze into one of those playoff spots. They're currently 20th there. Marblehead, they beat Masco last week. Real good game. Nino can tell you about that. Trailing at halftime, they come back and score 26 unanswered in the second half to remain unbeaten. They're 5-0. They're a top Division 3. They're probably not going to move too far from that. Masco dropped a little bit with the loss, but not much. They're 4-1. They're ranked number 7, I want to say. So that's a good spot for them to be in there. Revere is 4-1, but again, their strength of schedule is not great. I think they were hovering around 18, I want to say. So they got a little bit of work to do to try to get into that top 16 there. The loss for Danvers dropped them down 1 spot, I know, in Division 4 to 3rd overall behind, I want to say, Duxbury and Scituate. So best of the North teams in Division 4, but obviously there's no North-South anymore when it comes to the playoffs. They're 3-2. They still have Swampscott and Marblehead coming up that we know of. And who else am I forgetting that they haven't played yet? Masco. They'll still be playing Masco. So a tough triumvirate of games for Danvers, but a chance to fix their own playoff seeding a little bit. Salem and Gloucester are both in Division 4, but it's unfortunate. Salem is 4-1. They're playing their best football in years, but because the teams they've played have been so poor, they don't have much to show for it in terms of strength of schedule. I think they're combined strength of schedule was something like, and it's a tricky formula, but it was like -8 or -7.9 or something like that. Now, if they were to beat Masco this weekend, now they'll be an underdog, certainly, but if they were to go up to Masconomet and beat them, that would definitely help them. Might be able to vault them up a little bit, but they're right around 26, 27 now in that 36-team field in Division 4. Did I say Gloucester was in that? I think they're Division 5, right, Nick?
Yeah, Gloucester's 5. They were 32nd out of 37 last week, and that'll probably go down a bit when you lose by 32 to 1-3 Winthrop. So I think they've been out of it for weeks. So.
Yeah, I think they got a tough go of it. I mean, Division 5 locally, you're looking at Bishop Fenwick. They were number 1. Even after the loss to St. Mary's 2 weeks ago. Swampscott is 5-0. They were number 5, I want to say, but a gauntlet of games coming up for them where they can certainly boost themselves playing the likes of Danvers and Beverly.
Wasn't Swampscott's ranking a little? Wasn't their record incorrectly?
It was,
submitted?
Yeah, it was.
They'll probably be even higher than they were.
Well, I know that Pentucket was ahead of them, and I believe North Reading was too. So if you take those two teams and Fenwick, that would leave one team from the south, maybe Norton or Old Rochester, Hudson, maybe. I can't remember. One of those teams might have been above Swampscott, the 4th spot. What else do we have here? Division 6, I think St. Mary's is riding pretty high. I want to say they're 2nd because they're 5-0, along with Stoneham. Maybe Stoneham's 2 and St. Mary's is 3 or vice versa. That kind of thing. Linfield is right in there too, even after they got blasted by Hamilton Wenham. I think they were number 14, so they were within the playoff mix. Division 5, Hamilton Wenham rolling at 4-1. They were seeded number 4. They got a tough test this week going up to Newburyport. Newburyport's probably played a little bit of competition, so it'll be interesting to see how well Hamilton Wenham plays. And, you can talk again about that game where they blasted Linfield this past weekend. And Division 8, Cougs, Manchester Essex Hornets, they are riding atop the pack, number 1. 5-0. I'm not even sure there are that many other 5-0 teams in Division 8. You might be looking at, I don't know, Ware or Narragansett or Quahog or some of those schools, but not many. So I think the Hornets are in pretty good shape as far as that goes. So that's just kind of a capsule look at everything that's happening in terms of the playoffs.
Hey, Phil, are these rankings are available online somewhere? I mean,
yeah, you can find them on the MIA website.
Okay.
And I think as Nick Cooker just mentioned, they were a little bit off, but I think they've been tweaked and fixed, so I believe them to be accurate. So you can check them on there, and they'll change, like I said, every weekend based on the games. So it'll give you a sense of where your team or teams stand as far as those go.
You were mentioning that Danvers will be at Swampscott Friday night, so that'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Yeah, I've seen Danvers a couple times. I haven't seen Swampscott yet, so I'm looking forward to catching the Big Blue. They obviously have played very well out of the gate. I think they've really controlled all 5 games, and even if you look at that opener where I want to say they beat Leicester, it was kind of like a last-minute thing. Leicester came in, had an open spot, and Swampscott was up by a couple of touchdowns going into the 4th quarter, and then for whatever reason, they let off the gas a little bit defensively, and Leicester punched a couple in late. But I think for the most part, Swampscott's played very well. Now, Danvers is coming off of a disappointing loss. I think that, this is a team who, when I saw them play Reading, which I think most people would say Reading is a top 15 team in the state, maybe,
Yeah.
Danvers played very well against them. They only lost 14-10, and then they looked great defensively and all. I think it was a different story this past Friday in Beverly. I think there was a lot of frustration in what they weren't able to do, both stopping Beverly, especially on those jet sweeps and the belly and buck plays inside, and offensively really getting anything going. They couldn't seem to find any kind of consistent rhythm without either turning the ball over. They had 2 interceptions and a fumble lost in Beverly territory, or just, going 3 and out or going for it a 4th down and not converting. So I'm guessing this will be a pretty intense week of practice over in Danvers. They do not want to fall to 3-3. I think they're a better team than that. And Swampscott may very well give them their best test of the year. That's nothing against Reading or Beverly, but I think Swampscott's playing really good. They want to test their mettle against a team that they feel like it is every bit their equal. So this is really going to be a premier clash, I feel like, between two teams that have the same goal of continuing to improve, but somebody's going to be saddled with a loss Friday night.
Nick Giannino, I want to go to you. You saw Marblehead Masconomet. Maybe touch on that piece, as Phil alluded to right at the beginning. Marblehead down, and what it was 21-7 at the half. I think Marblehead was down.
21-7.
Yeah.
21-7. I thought Masco looked great in that first half. They came out with a good game plan. They were mixing up the play calling, and Matt Richardson looked good under center. They were pounding the run game pretty well. And they got off to a great start. The defense was stopping Marblehead. I mean, they had all the momentum. Then Marblehead, got the ball back to start the third quarter. They had kicked off to begin the game, so they got the ball back. And they scored on that first drive, looked like a completely different team. Then they got an interception deep in Masco territory, scored again, and it was tied within, 5 minutes into the third quarter. So I think that kind of took the wind out of Masco's sails a little bit. And, Marblehead capitalized. Like I said, when they played Lynn English, I think they're just so great at making in-game adjustments when they're down. They just have so much talent. They can, like I said with Masco, they can mix up the play calling well. I thought Josh Robertson did a great job under center. I thought Connor Cronin ran the ball really well. And then defensively, they started getting stops.
He had 4 touchdowns, didn't he, Cronin?
Yeah, Cronin had 4 touchdowns. I mean, he's a beast. Yeah, absolute beast. They had no answer for him. And on the other side, Masco's two brothers there, Matt and Sam Nadworny, they're both great runners too. But
I think the difference being with Cronin is one of the few players in the area who I think can score anytime he touches the ball.
Yeah.
And the benefit for Marblehead, if that's the right word to say, is that they don't have to rely on him to do that. It's not like they need to wear him into the ground and have him touch the ball 25 times a game. They had the luxury of spreading the ball around to George Percy and James Duty and having Robertson run the ball. And I'm forgetting, other guys, Xander Danforth and Craig Michalowski, and, on and on and on it goes with these guys.
They're very deep.
If they want to load up on Cronin, they can, but they can kind of pick their spots and do it. And it seemed like maybe this was a situation where whatever they saw that defense was giving them, Cronin was able to exploit it. I mean, but he's got that capability, that big 4 touchdown play capability at all times.
Well, the thing with Cronin too is he's quick, he's fast, and he's strong. I mean, he can run over guys, he can run around them, and he can run past them. So he can really do it all. Offensively, and he showcased that against Masconomet with those 4 touchdowns.
And he hits like a truck on defense too.
And defensively, he's great. So, but I thought the Marblehead cornerback stepped up in the second half. Coach Jim Rudloff particularly highlighted James Galante, who was kind of getting beat in a couple weeks prior. He really stepped up and did a nice job, especially in that second half. They did just completely slow down the Masco offense. There was couple times Masco would string together a pretty decent drive and you thought, they might score here, but then Marblehead would come up with 3 or 4 straight stops and force a punt. So impressive win for Marblehead, and I think they're still the team to beat in the NEC.
Nick, the other thing too, you covered Hamilton, Wenham, Linfield on Saturday, and I mean, I think we talked about this game. Well, actually, we didn't talk about this game last week because I wasn't here last week. But we've talked about Linfield and Hamilton Wenham, and I was surprised by the margin. I guess I could have seen either team winning that game as I looked at the game moving ahead, just looking at scores from this year. But the margin of victory for Hamilton Wenham was impressive. And so, how real is Hamilton Wenham this year?
Well, first of all, I want to apologize to Hamilton Wenham and Jim Pugh and all them. I think every single one of us picked against them. We all picked Linfield. We were underestimated.
I saw that. I did see that.
They were coming off
a perfect week. I would have had a perfect week if I just stuck with the Generals. I was stupid.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were coming off a loss against Pentucket. The previous couple of weeks before that, they were winning games, but they weren't scoring a lot. And then in this one, it wasn't one of those blowouts where, Hamilton Wenham was just that much better than Linfield. I thought Linfield had some decent players. They made some good drives, got deep into Hamilton Wenham territory, but Hamilton Wenham just wanted it more. They came up with the bigger plays. They capitalized on their opportunities. I mean, I highlighted in my story, but they got a goal line stop just before the half, where they're already up 28-0 at that point, but Linfield was about to score. They're on the 1 yard line with, first down, 1 yard line, and they got second down on the 1 yard line, and they got 3 straight stops to go into the half with a shutout lead, and that was kind of the game right there. But we've talked about their defense all year. I think their defense has been terrific. They held Linfield to 8 points. I think other than that Pentucket game, they haven't allowed more than 1 touchdown to any opponent. The Damaraki brothers, they've been great. One of them had a pick. Luke had a pick 6, and is it Chris, the other one? He had a ton of tackles. I mean, he was just a beast at linebacker, and they were just getting a ton of stops defensively. And then on the other end, they got the job done. I mean, they went with John Ertel at quarterback. I know they've been switching him and Marcus Norden a little bit, but Norden's definitely more suited for the wide receiver position. I think he's more of a threat there, and they used him. They were able to connect for a touchdown. He had a couple other nice passes. And then Norden also on special teams, he's their kicker and punter, and he was booting the heck out of the ball. I mean, he pinned Linfield and deep in their own territory a few times, so that's a good weapon to have. So to answer your question, Bill, yeah, I think Hamilton Wenham's for real. They got a big matchup, like we said, coming up this week. But I think if they can keep grinding on defense like that and getting big stops, and if their offense can start coming together a little bit more like it did against Linfield, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, Hamilton Wenham at Newburyport this weekend. Nick Kukuru up in the Cape Ann area. Gloucester hosting Saugus Friday night, and then you've got undefeated Manchester Essex hosting Minuteman also on Friday night. So maybe an update from us from the Cape Ann area.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Manchester Essex Minuteman, that's probably one of the easier games on their schedule. I'd be very surprised if they didn't, have the JVs in by the fourth quarter of that one. And Gloucester Saugus should be a battle. I mean, to be honest with you, they both lost to Salem by 1 score. Well, Gloucester's was 2 score because of the extra points, but, seemed like a very similar type of game against Salem both times. And last year, it was a competitive game when they played 2. Gloucester won by 2 touchdowns, but Saugus really handed them the game with 3 early turnovers. So it was a pretty evenly matched contest for the most part. But yeah, I mean, the big one, Manchester Essex proven to be a team to watch in Division 8 this year. Big win over Kip on Saturday. Those are the two undefeated teams in the Commonwealth Conference. Manchester Essex comes in averaging 37 points a game. Kip comes in averaging 42 points a game. So of course it was a 15-8 defensive struggle on both ways, which I didn't expect, but you have to give both teams credit on defense. Manchester Essex really shut down Kip's Russian attack. Kip's quarterback, Juan Satal-Singh, he's a little shifty runner with a pretty decent arm for a guy who's not that big, and they really contained him. You could tell he was a dangerous playmaker, and they contained him all game. Defensive ends Troy Flood and Ben Hurd were in the backfield all afternoon. And then, the Kip defense, they really slowed down Manchester Essex passing attack. They were eliminating the big plays. They had bracket coverage on AJ Palazzola all game, which was a smart move. And, so Manchester Essex kind of had to grind out some yards there with the run game late. And, they were able to punch a couple in the second half to get that big win. But yeah, number 1 in Division 8, they're going to be a factor. I know last time they had a Division 8 section, Manchester was in Division 7, but Kip won Division 8 North in 2019. So, I don't know much about the South sectional teams, but Kip was one of, the premier program in that smallest division in the North section, at least.
Nick, when was the last time, I don't even know if you know this, but when was the last time Gloucester was 0-5 to start a season?
2011, they started 0-7. Tony Zerilli's first year, and then they turned that around. quite quick. But the thing is now Gloucester loses one more. Gloucester hasn't had 3 straight losing seasons since 1971 to 73. So looks like that's going to happen this season. It'd be tough to envision them beating Peabody or Beverly, even if they get past Saugus this week. So
Well,
it's
has there ever been an instance where at this point in the season, say halfway through, let's call it, where Gloucester hasn't won a game, but Manchester is undefeated?
That I don't know. I'm sure that probably has happened at some point, but not anytime soon. I mean, if you're looking at
I don't know.
Gloucester before these last few years, Gloucester hadn't had a losing season in something like, I think going into 2011, it had been almost 25 years since Gloucester had even had a losing season. So
Yeah,
it was
like late 80s, I want to say, right?
Yeah, I think 1990. I think they went 1990 to 2010, all winning seasons. And then they only had 2 losing seasons under Tony Zerilli, and now they've had 2 straight the last 2 years. So if it did happen, it wasn't any time recently in the last 3 or 4 decades. That's for sure.
Maybe going back to when Manchester was Story High.
Yeah, and when they were just Manchester High, and they were they won a couple Super Bowls out of the Mayflower Conference in the early 80s. So maybe if
New York was coaching there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that is if it happened, it was probably around that time.
Maybe when the Mayflower landed was the last time it happened.
Yeah.
No, I think Gloucester. I don't think Gloucester was. I thought they were pretty good back then too. I mean, they were never. They weren't a losing team. I don't think. I mean, they were always.
I don't think they were really consistently a team with a losing record since.
No, I don't think so. 70s. No,
and obviously, I'm not saying this to poke fun at Gloucester by any stretch. I mean, I realize things are cyclical and all. It's just. It's interesting to me where you have 2 schools in your area and you have one that's up as high as it can be and one that is, still looking for their first win. So I just thought that was an interesting parallel. I didn't know if you knew when that might have happened.
These stats are relevant. I feel bad. A couple of years ago, I kind of had a new stat out there every week. This was, the biggest loss since I think you go back to the 20s a couple of years ago when Danvers put up 60 on them on Thanksgiving. So, you feel bad having to make these callbacks, but I mean, they are relevant. They do put things into perspective. And it is all cyclical. They're down right now, and it looks like they'll be that way for a little bit, but they got to they got to get more kids in the program. They got to get more, consistency kind of coming into the program, because as long as they have 40 kids, this is what they're going to be. I mean,
you know what? 10 years ago, they were a top 5 or 6 team in the state. So things are cyclical, fans. You just got to ride it out.
Phil, you mentioned them being down. You mentioned them being down in the early 70s, but then by the mid 70s, they had a fellow by the name of Palazzolo playing for Gloucester, but now Palazzolo plays for Manchester Essex. So I don't know what the deal is. You're right. So,
that Palazzolo's father was on the 81, 80 or 82, the Manchester Super Bowl team we mentioned in the early 80s. The AJ Palazzolo's father was on that team. So call, but
Nick Giannino, you disappeared on us for a minute there. I thought maybe you were changing into your Halloween costume and going to surprise us, but no. Okay.
Wardrobe changes. Just had to take care of something in the kitchen.
In between game previews, Nick changes up a little bit on us here.
Who are you going out as? Kobe or LeBron as a Laker?
Yeah, I won't be doing either of those this year. We'll see though. Maybe something from Stranger Things or something.
Okay.
Gentlemen, how about any non-football stuff? We've talked a lot about. Well, actually, I do have one more thing I want to mention. I don't know if you guys can comment on it, but Archbishop Williams at Fenwick this weekend. Any insight on that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Woods threw 4 touchdown passes for Fenwick. Jason Romans, who Nino highlighted earlier this week, he's been a boon since coming back to the program, the football program for Fenwick. He's already among the area's pass receptions leaders. He's a big play threat on the outside for Fenwick, and they're getting all kinds of great defensive play as well. I know Jacob Vargas was a big star for them this past weekend. He was involved in fumble recovery, a pick, a bunch of tackles, and also, and what was supposed to be maybe I don't know if rebuilding year was the right word to say, but having lost so many seniors on that unbelievable team last year, I think most of us figured like, okay, there's bound to be a little bit of regression, but There really hasn't been. Fenwick is just kind of flying along here, and they're playing great. They've got a lot of guys who I think have been hungry to show what they can do, given a chance to start, and they're making the most of it.
Yeah, they beat Spelman 31-0 last week. Archbishop Williams there this week. And so, gentlemen, how about any non-football, high school football conversation in our final couple of minutes here? Several.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, pretty good field hockey game on Saturday, Masco and Danvers. Was supposed to be played 2 weeks ago. Masco bus never showed up to pick
That's
them up.
right.
So game had to be a PPD, but they played it on Saturday. Great game, 2-0 win for Masco. Danvers played great. Masco played great. Really impressed with Danvers goalie, Megan McGinnity. She's only a sophomore. I think she has 8 or 9 shutouts off the top of my head. Both goals that beat her were rebounds, where the ball wasn't cleared. Masco's just relentless. They just come after you with wave after wave after wave of talented players. Maggie Sturgis, the area's leading player. I think she has double the points that anybody else has. She has like 38 points in 10 games. She assisted on both goals from Julia Graves and Cecily Pagliari. Ava Tello, a great game for them, transitioning defense to offense. So that was the first of 2 big matches for them. The other thing I was going to mention is kudos to Dan Keefe and the folks in Beverly, the principal, superintendent, the public works, the custodians, for making that work with 2 soccer games under the lights on Thursday and then a field hockey and football game Friday, bringing in temporary lights, making it a real festive atmosphere at the high school. For anybody who was complaining like, oh, the lights weren't good, I couldn't see, there was no place to sit. That just underscores my point that they need permanent lights. They need some bleachers they can bring in, maybe some portable bleachers. You get a new scoreboard, maybe a pseudo press box, and you're in business there for a great on-campus facility that almost all the outdoor teams can use. So I think it was a smash success. And in my opinion, it's not a question of when that's going to happen. I'm sorry, of if that's going to happen, but when.
Yeah. Yeah, bringing in the portable lights is usually a precursor for, trying to move forward in that direction. And
it was great.
And I know that's been the talk.
Yeah.
I actually like that. There was a great story, by the way, in the Salem News, and now I forgot who wrote it. I don't know, was it the sports guys or the news guys? It was the sports guys that wrote it, right? Previewing that with Dan or not?
Yeah,
Phil. I'm sorry. So good story.
Well,
And but what it was it had is that I think the schools ought to do more of this, is have special weekends kind of where you are playing Danvers, let's say in multiple sports. It doesn't have to be a rivalry kind of game, but could it be anything? But it's a fun weekend to make that your focal point under the lights, over the weekend, playing all these
you're
games.
right. Like the prep schools I noticed do that a lot. Like the Pingrees of the world for us, they'll play, say, like Concord Academy in like 4 sports in the same day kind of thing. And it makes it, like you said, for like a great atmosphere. And it was, with food trucks there the other night, there was a vaccine station. There was, Beverly Bootstraps were there. There were all kinds of donations that people could make and things like that. It was really cool.
In my travels last week, I was by Falmouth at one point, and I almost stopped. I could have stopped in and seen James Coffey up there, but I didn't. I just kept going, but wasn't that, I don't know. I forgot what time it was, but I thought of him,
Sailors,
James
right?
Coffey. Yeah. No. I think
the
you're right.
Yachtsmen.
Yachtsmen. There you go. Yeah.
I think not just sailors, they're yachtsmen.
Yeah. There you go. Nick G or Nick C.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight a couple undefeated teams we got in the area. We'll start with Masco boys soccer. I believe they're up to 12-0 now. This is a team kind of a few question marks heading into the season. They got a lot of new faces, but Jared Scarpacci and his group continues to get it done. I mean, undefeated. If they're beating some good teams, they've had some really good wins in the conference. So just a team to watch out for. They could very well run the table. They're going to have some tough opponents coming up, but the way they've been playing, especially on defense, they're going to be really tough to beat. And then in golf, Beverly they got a really special team this year. Did they have that match against Gloucester yet, Nick? Because I know Gloucester.
That's coming up Thursday. And Gloucester's also still undefeated, although they're going to have to get by Danvers on Tuesday. Danvers lost to them last week, but it was real close. It could have gone either way. So they're playing for the second time in a week tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that'll be good.
So I know Gloucester's having a good season. I think Beverly has to be the favorite in that matchup. They're just dominating every team they've played. I mean, they haven't even had a close match in the conference. It's like the discrepancy between them and any other team is just ridiculous. They've got 8 guys that are breaking 40 on a regular basis. And it's a team that honestly could probably compete with St. John's Prep, which is honestly unheard of in this area. Prep's having a great season. What's that?
Hearsay to say that.
Yeah, I mean, and St. John's Prep is having a great season too. They only have the one loss, or maybe twice they've lost to St. John's Shrewsbury, another very good team. But yeah, just shout out to Beverly. I mean, they got Jack Ryan, Will Ryan, Aiden LeBlanc, Ian Paddock. I'm probably missing some guys there, but all their guys are breaking 40 on 9 holes on a regular basis, which is pretty hard to do. So they got a great shot of running the table.
Yeah, I'd say definitely Beverly, probably the favorite, being that the North team there, and the top of their lineup so good. It is at Bass Rocks, and Gloucester's.
That's the one thing. I don't think a lot of those kids have probably played at Bass Rocks, and that can be a tricky course. So Gloucester will have the advantage there, and probably going to be the Panthers' closest match of the season. Regardless of which way it ends up.
Yeah, that's a narrow course, and I don't think it matters how long you hit it, but you can't hit the roughs there. You
yeah,
hit it
exactly.
As long as the greens are undulating, they've got a chance.
Yeah, you got to stay on the fairway. Yeah, that's pretty good advice. Yeah. Nick Kukuru, anything else you want to shoot down from us from the Cape Ann area?
Yes, I got a couple teams. I mean, Gloucester boys soccer, Nick was mentioning Masco boys, Gloucester kind of gave them one of their closer matches last week, 2-1. And, it was a loss, but they were thrilled with the performance. They couldn't have been happier with the way they played. And they've kind of brought that momentum into their next 2. So they're 6-2 now. And they got a big one at Marblehead on Wednesday. I think that they're both unbeaten in NEC South action. So that's going to be a good matchup. And that's also a battle of brother-in-law coaches. I know Gloucester coach Armando Marnoto. All right, what's the Marblehead coach's name? I know it's Armando's brother-in-law.
It's Elmer Magana or Magnana. I can never pronounce his last name, but yeah, they're exactly.
Well, that'll be an interesting matchup. And then there's Manchester Essex Field Hockey. They've won 7 in a row now. After they got off to 1-2 start, they're now 9-2, and they're just rolling. They got Masconomet on Tuesday, which is a really big test, non-league test. So they're playing probably the best Division II team in the state. But Manchester has some good wins out of their division. So they were ranked ahead of Ipswich in the power ratings, but when Ipswich beat Manchester in the first game, and Ipswich only had 1 loss at the time, Manchester has 2, but Manchester has a 2-0 win over Danvers. Outside of Masco, that's the only team to beat Danvers. And they also beat Triton, who team. So that it's a couple weeks away, but October 28th, it's Manchester Essex versus Ipswich. That might be the 2 best teams in the Cal, large and small. So that's one to watch out for. A Highland Field coming up in a couple of weeks, and
they play
that might be the
I think Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday night they play at Masco, so that'll be a big tournament test. Looking down the line, with no Watertown to deal with, Manchester Essex and Ipswich could be the top 2 seeds and could be on a crash course for a state title match. I don't want to look too far ahead, but just looking at a lot of these other teams that I'd seen in Division II before, Manchester Essex and Ipswich are better than all of them on the average year. So they got to be the 2 heavy favorites in that section and that division once that tournament starts up.
Just real quick, Bill, got a chance to see Pingree football over the weekend. They're 3-0. Boy, Mike Flynn and his coaching staff do a great job with the Highlanders. Hudson Weidman, former Masco guy, dual threat quarterback, ran for over 100, threw for over 100. Jack Feeks with a touchdown catch the other day. Chris Colby with a touchdown catch for extra points. Really strong defense. They are looking good. So if you get a chance to go out and catch the Highlanders, do so. You won't regret it.
All right. Well, gentlemen, great seeing you guys again, and have a great week ahead, and great football weekend ahead as well. Take care.
Let's make everything great.